Hello, everybody. Welcome to the SoxProspects.com podcast. We are the web's #1 source for information on the Boston Red Sox farm system from top to bottom, from Fort Myers to Pawtucket and all stops in between. Thank you for the listen. My name is Chris Hatfield. I am the executive editor of Sox Prospects, joined, as always, by our Man City shirt-clad director of scouting, Ian Kundle. Ian, good day for you today as we record.
It was a very enjoyable morning watching the demolition of Chelsea. And it was it's been a good good little run for the boys. So that's always good. But now it's almost time to turn our attention to baseball season, which is kind of exciting.
It is, although it's kind of funny, I was actually thinking about this morning. This is among the random thoughts that pop into my head at various points during the day. And I'm just thinking, it feels like there are a lot of prospect heads who follow soccer, or at least maybe like a disproportionate number. So like, I know you're a big Man City guy, although you have British roots.
Yes.
I feel like Kylie McDaniel and or Eric Longenhagen, one or both of them follow the Premier League.
I don't know.
I feel like Jeffrey Pasternosto at
BP. He does, but he's like a weird Sheffield Wednesday fan, which I don't understand how that happens, but
that's weird.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking, like, maybe it's just kind of like, we have this American sort of like
niche
sports fan regime of there are 4 leagues. You care about at most 3 of them, or you're a hockey fan, right? I mean, like hockey's becoming somewhat of a niche sport. Let's be
not for me.
Here.
I'll watch the playoffs.
Yeah. All right. So you've got hockey, you've got basketball, baseball, football. And then there's kind of like the sports fan that once you're beyond that and you're talking about things like minor leagues, you're more likely to look to things like soccer or, like maybe you're like a lacrosse fan if you're in the right region, or you have like a
golf.
Golf. Right.
Yeah, no, I think I can see, I do think there's a lot of baseball Twitter people, or I think is more the general one. Cause like, I know like the Cespedes BBQ guys, one of them's a big Man City fan. John Mioli, our own, is a big sports fan. Yeah. So I think part of it is the Premier League is on at such a convenient time because it's on weekend mornings when nothing else is on. Like you wake up, you can wake up and you can watch soccer. It's great, which is just a really convenient thing to do on the weekends because it's before you have some errands to run, but from 10 to 12 or from 8 to 10 you can watch a game or your team play. And so it's just a very convenient thing. And the season runs when there's nothing else on. It's always before college football during the fall, during the spring, no basketball's on, no baseball's on. And so, it's just a really convenient. And then the season's over by, beginning of May, mid-May. So you're not running too far into the baseball season. Even when you are, there's no morning games. So it's just the perfect, it's like a perfect appetizer for the day on the weekends.
Sounds right. That sounds right to me. And I like that they actually started marketing it to that, like the NBC Sports Network.
No, NBC Sports does a great job marketing it. I mean, they get huge ratings because of it in terms of for the time period. Obviously, it's not going to compare to like American sports ratings wise, but except for hockey, I think it does well compared to that. But in terms of the time slot when it's on, they do really well. Yeah. And they do a great job. It's just so funny that it's this little tangent, but a bunch of my friends over in the UK, they always complain because their TV laws are really strict. So they only get 1 game per window and everything else is blacked out because it's kind of like the NFL. They want to encourage, they think if they broadcast all the games, people won't go to the games. Like if they broadcast them on TV, so they have blackout, they have like designated slot rules. And so each network has a certain game and every other game is never shown on TV. Whereas, I have a choice every morning. I can watch any game I want. So I can watch every Premier League game the entire season versus they get 1 per 10 o'clock window or 3 PM window. 1 late kickoff is always televised, but it's a lot easier to consume and watch soccer over here than it is in the UK, which makes no sense, but it is what it is.
Right. Fair enough. Well, this isn't the Premiership podcast. This is the Sox Prospects podcast. So we should talk about, the Boston Red Sox farm system. As we record this, it is Sunday, February the 10th.
Truck days happened.
Truck day. Oh, the truck's already there, man. The truck is in Fort Myers.
People are there. Like reporters are there. We're getting pitchers throwing.
That's probably something we can mention is the people who are down there. Twitter.com/PeteAbe.
Yeah.
I know Alex Cora reported today. I almost called him Joey.
Oh, God.
Let's see. Oh, Alex Spear is down there now, too. So, like, Stephen Wright is there. Stephen Wright's playing catch. Interesting. I'm curious whether he's going to be ready for the start of the season. But
yeah,
Stephen Wright's there. Zach Putnam's there.
Oh, what a player. He went to Michigan.
I know. Dana Levangi's there. Nate Eovaldi, Brian Johnson, Marco Hernandez. I mean, heck, pitchers and catchers report on Tuesday, so
that's what I was about to say. Like,
it's probably by the time this comes out, all the pitchers and catchers will be there.
When's the first spring training game?
I don't know. I'm just worried about when we go down, and that's
it's the 21st. I want to say
of February.
Yes, I believe. Let's see if I'm right.
Do they still do both college games or no?
I don't think they are this year. Yeah, they're only doing Northeastern this year. 22nd is actually the first one.
Gotcha.
So the first full squad workout is the 18th, and then the 22nd is the first game. So we got a little bit over 2 weeks, or less than 2 weeks, excuse me. 2 weeks from Friday, last Friday, the first game, which is wild. And the regular season starts early, so I think the 28th is when it starts for everyone but the teams playing in China or Japan. I think it's Japan.
Yeah, it's Japan, because I know the Mariners signed Ichiro, and he's going to play with them just for those games and then retire or something.
I wonder if they're going to start the Japanese guy they signed to. They probably will, right?
Kikuchi?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, the Red Sox actually opened with the Mariners. I didn't realize that. That's interesting. But yeah, so it's going to be it's coming quick, and minor league spring training obviously starts later than regular spring or big league spring training. But
that's right.
Their games, I believe, start the 13th.
Before we get there. Yeah, so we get there on the 20th. You're going to be there all day on the 20th, Ian?
Yeah, I fly in the morning.
Okay, so Mike and I are flying in that night. We'll be there through Sunday. We're going to be tweeting from there, posting from there. We'll do a wrap-up podcast from there, and I'm toying with an idea related to coverage from spring training that we will talk about on here, on Twitter, and on potentially the news page if we do it.
Yeah.
So we'll talk. I don't want to tip anything off yet if we don't do it, or how, depending on how we're going to do it. But at any rate, we'll give you guys enough ramp-up time on that. And Ian, remind me to talk to you about this after we finish recording. Yeah.
Oh, and good news. This is, you hear our thought processes. They actually only have one home game during the day while we're there.
The Major League team.
Yes. Only Saturday, Pittsburgh. They're away at the Twins and away at the Orioles on two of the days.
Although we made a discovery, it's kind of funny. So we asked for your questions, and I guess just to kind of actually start getting into the show now that we're a good 8 minutes in.
Yeah. People like this stuff, though.
We got a lot of questions from you guys. So as I always like to say, we like to talk about what you want to hear about. It's kind of great. I put out a tweet asking for people to email us questions, and we got 2 emails and 7 responses on Twitter.
Twitter's the new email.
Reading comprehension a little lacking, but that's okay. That's okay. I still love you guys. Like I said, we appreciate your questions and your comments, however you want to get them to us. So we'll get to those, and really the only other thing we have to talk about at this point is a couple more rankings have come out since our last episode. Keith Law at ESPN released his list, and the guys at Fangraphs, Eric Longenhagen and Kylie McDaniel, released their list of Red Sox prospect rankings. And it really seems to me, kind of big picture-wise, Ian, that they're kind of where we've been, where things aren't great at the top, but it's as deep as a team that's got a system this week can be. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, the depth is coming back, and that's kind of what the Red Sox lost with all those 4-for-1 and 3-for-1 trades.
And
graduations also. Well, the graduations, though, I feel like took the depth off the top. It was more the trades, I feel like.
Benintendi and Devers.
It was actually the trades and the international shenanigans where they lost 5 guys or whatever it was.
And a couple bad drafts.
Sign anyone. And then a couple bad drafts, but they're starting to get that depth back. They don't have that. I think Michael Chavis is the only one who's made a top 100 list. I want to say he made MLBs.
Yeah, Darwinzon Hernandez made the just miss for Keith Law. which only has like 10 people on it.
Yeah, but I think Chavis was like 79, I want to say.
79 on MLB's list, yeah.
But, I mean, it just shows they don't have that, like, high-end talent that they used to have, when they'd always have someone in that top, 20 or so, like Benintendi was there, Betts, Bogarts, guys like that. They don't have, the high-end talent or even, the top 100-y talent, but they have a lot of guys in, like, the 7 to 15 range who, they're not necessarily top 100 talents at this point, but they're interesting. And, they all take a step forward, potentially someone who could knock on the door of that at some point. And I even think they do have, a couple guys, kind of one guy who has the chance to move into the upper echelons of a list. And I think he's starting to get some more recognition after we've talked about him a lot in here. I'm obviously
we'll get there.
But yeah.
We'll get there. We'll get to that. It's worth mentioning Fangraphs hasn't had his top 100 list come out yet, but that said, when you look at their future value rankings, I'm skeptical that the Red Sox will put anyone on their list.
Do they have anyone at 50? No, then they won't, because the bottom of the list is always 50s.
Yeah. So at any rate, we do want to make sure we give a shout out to all of our $5 level supporters on Patreon. Again, if you go to patreon.com/SoxProspects, you can support the podcast. You pledge a certain amount per episode. And I just realized I need to post the last one on Patreon. But we always want to give a shout out to our $5 level supporters on there. That'd be Sox Signatures, Kirby Miller, Kyle Costigan, Tyler Woodrow, Jeff Trainer, David Nardone, Tim Harding, Ernest Shermer, Bill Stanton, Deb Kendall, Evan Kirkwood, Chris Fox, James O'Hara, Nathan Kenyon, Andrew Wallen, Lendell Martin, and our newest $5 level supporter, Joe Corkery. Thank you, everybody. And as I mentioned, send your emails to podcast@soxprospects.com. Ian, should we jump? I'm inclined to start with the questions, but we're already kind of like, 15% of the way into talking about the rankings. I don't know. Do we want to double back to that?
No, let's do the questions first. Let's do the
questions. Okay. Well, you got to wait then. Yeah. Make the people earn it. But yeah, I put the call out for questions on Twitter. We got it out there and you guys responded. We appreciate that. Let's hit, I guess, the emails first. This first email question comes from Pat Mahoney. And Pat said, "Hi, guys. My question is with the surplus of third/first base prospects, Sam Travis, Michael Chavis, Josh Ockamy, Bobby Dahlbeck, and the guys from last June's draft. Could you see a deal for another prospect at a different position? Thanks, Patrick." Appreciate the question, Patrick. Ian, it's a discussion that comes up every now and then on the Sox Prospects Forum. That's the message board on our site, and we encourage everybody listening. If you're interested in talking more about prospects, get involved there. There's some good discussion going on. We're always welcoming new folks there. But why don't more prospect for prospect trades happen? And I feel like this is a listener question that comes up on a lot of the podcasts I listen to. The Baseball America podcast, the MLB Pipeline podcast, Eric and Kylie's podcast over on Fangraphs. I love the name, the Untitled McDonkenhagen Project, which is just fantastic. But I feel like this always comes up. It used to come up on Fringe Average and the old BP podcasts. Why don't more prospect for prospect trades happen? And I think that's really kind of the bigger picture thing than will the Red Sox do that here? Because frankly, my answer would be I can't see that occurring for the reasons why this doesn't ever happen. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, we actually did see one this offseason. You had that weird three-way trade with the Reds and the Mariners and the Yankees where they basically traded Josh Stowers for Shed Long.
Oh, right.
But that was just because the Yankees needed to clear 40-man roster room, though, so that's why they traded Long.
Right.
But I think it's teams, if another team is trading a prospect, that there's got to be something wrong, kind of, because the teams have more information about their own prospects, obviously, than anyone else. And it means that if they're offering this prospect in the trade and you're the one potentially receiving them, you got to wonder what's going on here. Like, why are they inclined to trade this prospect for, someone we know? And I just think it's kind of a familiarity thing. Like, your system, what the guys need to work on, you know what your projections of them are. And you're always going to know more about your guys than anyone else's. And so it just makes it tough for the prospect trades versus obviously, prospects are big time currency when it comes to acquiring major league guys. And I think that's where the third base or corner infield depth will become useful this year, is if they need to go out and get some bullpen help, considering it looks like they're not going to be re-signing Craig Kimbrell at this point or filling anyone else.
We'll get there.
Yeah. So I think that's more likely what we'll see that depth used for.
Yeah, and it's the rarity with which it lines up, in which I have a need soon that I want to trade my lottery ticket that I don't find as useful as your lottery ticket, where the other team feels the same way.
It's actually ironic, though. We did see the Red Sox do it earlier this offseason.
We did.
Esteban Kuros for Colton Brewer.
I guess so. That's true.
But that again it seems like it was a 40-man thing. The Padres knew they couldn't protect Brewer.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like, all right, we're going to trade a guy we can't keep or we're not going to be able to protect to a team that likes him for someone we have more team control over. And that's the same thing with that Yankees deal I mentioned earlier. So it seems like that's kind of the impetus for the prospect for prospect trades these days.
Yeah, I just muted yourself there. Yeah, that's okay. We'll leave it in. Screw it. We'll do it live. Yeah, that's the thing. It's just the rarity with which that happens. Like, and keep in mind the players that we're naming here, like the list, it oscillates so much in value of like Sam Travis, Michael Chavis, Josh Ockamy, Bobby Dahlbeck, Tristan Casas, Brandon Howlett, Nick Northcutt. You know what I mean? Like that's there's a lot of variance there where, no team is saying we have a second base prospect. Let's trade for Nick Northcutt. You know what I mean? Like no one's saying that. All right. Anyway, well, thank you for the question, Pat. And I don't see it. I just don't see a spot where they need a prospect. Really, this is a team that's trying to contend right now. So I can't see it happening.
They don't have the depth to be making prospect for prospect trades unless they're reflipping those guys, which is what's the point?
Right. Our other email question comes from Austin. And Austin says, hey, guys, the current state of pitching prospects, presumably in the system, seem to project as low-end starters and higher upside pen guys. The opener pitcher seems to be picking up some steam across baseball, with Sale and Porcello entering their last year under contract. Can you see the Red Sox entertaining this approach in the near future? And then he says, I would also love to hear Chris expand on his thoughts on the future CBA negotiations, as he alluded to in the last podcast. Appreciate the email, Austin. I think I'll probably save that part for another time because I could spend all day.
That's a long podcast.
That's a podcast episode. And I think,
especially too with the stuff that Jeff Passan was reporting about potential rule changes and stuff.
But I think I don't think there's anything to it. I think that was all just stuff that got brought up, and based on what Rob Manfred said this week, it doesn't sound like they're doing any of that in the near term. It just kind of they talked about it, and
it's just laying the groundwork for future negotiations.
Yeah. But there were some interesting questions in there. Maybe we can get to that a little bit. We'll see how long we run. But as to the other question, Ian, I have thoughts about the opener as far as the Red Sox potentially using it. But what do you think about any of that? There's the current state of pitching prospects in the system. There's the opener generally, and then there's like the fact of Sale and Porcello being in their last year under contract.
Yeah, I think the Red Sox don't really have anyone in the starting rotation who I would want having an opener for, because they actually have like 5 starting pitchers. And I honestly, if I were the Red Sox, I wouldn't want to ask Chris Sale what he thought about having someone open for him, because we saw Madison Bumgarner reacted, and we've seen how Chris Sale reacts when something he doesn't like happens, like a jersey he doesn't feel comfortable. So I personally do not see the Red Sox employing that at this point. And then in terms of the depth in the pitching in the system, like they don't really have many starting pitching prospects, ironically, like in the upper minors especially. So they kind of are stuck with what they have, and maybe going forward it could be something they look to employ, because they actually do have some guys who would be interesting potential like opener quote unquote candidates, or even guys who could follow the opener, a la Jalen Beeks, who they traded. Like I think Mike Schwarren could be pretty good in that role of like the follower guy who pitches 3 or 4 innings. But I just don't see it in the cards for this year. And but going forward, I guess you never know.
Yeah, that's the thing that I feel like everyone forgets about this. The Rays did the opener because they didn't have 5 starting pitchers.
Yeah. And
that's why they did it.
Yeah. And it's also like they can't afford to pay good starting pitchers big money, because the good starting pitchers actually command a lot of money. So, and then
Oakland did it in the playoffs for 1 game or something.
It's the wild card game.
And it was just kind of like, because whoever the heck they started, they were going to have a quick hook with. Yeah, so who cares? But there's a reason one team has done this.
Didn't someone else use it? thought someone else used it.
Not as regularly. I thought it was Oakland.
The Rays were the only ones who used it regularly.
Yeah.
Who was it?
I don't know if there's...
Oh, the Dodgers did it. The Dodgers, Twins, Athletics, and Rangers also employed openers in the last months of the 2018 season.
Okay, in the last month.
But that's September when you have expanded rosters where it's a lot easier.
Which, by the way, the one rule change that needs to happen is 28 guys in September.
Yeah.
No more of this 40-man nonsense.
Or just have like a 30-man roster that you designate each game. Like, it's not a hard thing. Yeah.
Right. But don't keep everyone active. It's like the New York Penn League.
But it seems like the Rays were the only ones who really did it. Like,
yeah. And again, it was because they had two starting pitchers, basically, in Snell and Archer until they traded Archer.
Well, then they have a bunch of guys, too, who were perfect for the follower role, like Ryan Bro, Jalen Beeks, guys. And they had also good openers, like Ryan Stanek and Hunter Wood and Sergio Romo were all like perfect opener guys. So it's kind of like a perfect storm for them. Right.
And I mean, just the Red Sox, I can't see them doing this. I mean, as far as guys being in their last year under contract, I mean, Sale and Porcello leaving frees up $35 million of cap space.
If they're not going to sign those guys, then they have every reason to use them as much as possible. So
right. Well, I think the question is, would those guys leave?
Oh,
if those guys left, and I can't.
I mean, I don't think they'll let both of them go. I think one of them will go. I think Porcello probably leaves. Frankly, if I had to guess, because guys like Chris Sale are hard to come by.
You're going to take some of Porcello's money to re-sign Sale.
But yeah, so...
Although who knows what the free agent market's going to be next year, because we thought we knew it was going to happen this year, and Lord knows we were wrong about that.
I think it's just more... It's going to be more of a question next offseason because they don't have like a quote-unquote homegrown replacement coming up. Like, there's no one I would consider who could open the season next year in the rotation, who's currently in their AAA, who's in their system, frankly. Like, there's no one who's a quote unquote starter who I'd be comfortable throwing out like that. So
I think,
the only way would be if Darwin's and Hernandez took like a major step forward.
Yeah.
But
we have on the website like this. It's just a fun page. It's not meant to be real. Yeah. But the future homegrown Red Sox rosters from 2020 to 2023. It's soxprospects.com/future. Or you can get there from like the projected rosters page right now. The 2019 rosters are meant to be more serious. But yeah, on the 2020 roster, I mean, I guess if Stephen Wright gets healthy again, you put him in the rotation.
He's 35 already, though. Like,
yeah, and I just don't think he's ever going to be healthy enough again. But our 2020 rotation is Pricey, Evaldi, Eduardo Rodriguez, Darwin's and Hernandez, Stephen Wright, which would be terrifying to me. With Brian Johnson is basically as your sixth guy. God, the 2021 rotation is Brian Mata in it. I don't see it.
They don't have, and we talked about it last year during the draft. Like, they didn't draft any starting pitching prospects either. Like, all the guys they really drafted, like they drafted like Feldman's pure relief type. Brian Brown's like an Orgy, depth arm. Chase Shugart's actually interesting because his stuff has gotten better, ironically, when he pitched in the rotation, but he was only throwing 3 inning stints and he's still like 5'11". So who knows him? Thad Ward I'm not sure it's a starter. I think he's a reliever. Like, they didn't really draft anyone who projects there. So they're going to have to go outside the organization for starters.
Right. Well, and hot take, I think that they're looking to the international market to develop starting pitchers right now.
That does not surprise me. I think the international market and free agency, because drafting pitchers is just starting pitching prospects is notoriously unreliable, as we're seeing with guys like Jason Groom. Yeah,
and I think that's the thing. With if you can get a Jay Groom in the first round, great. If you get a guy like Tanner Houck, who if we try X, Y, and Z, he'll work as a starter, and that didn't wind up working. I think unless you can get a Scherf type late on a big bonus, I think it's first round or two, and then just don't even try.
Which is what we saw last year.
Right, exactly. And I think, arguably, did we see them try that? Not depth chart. What do I want? Draft history. I mean, in 2017's draft, there's Houck in the first round, and then it's
Scherf.
Jake Thompson in the fourth is a future reliever.
Yeah.
There's Scherf, which is he got a second third-round bonus.
And I think he's a reliever, probably.
I mean, but he's also probably a reliever. But, I mean, it's like it's a high school arm.
Yeah.
2016, it was Groom, and then, Sean Anderson, Mike Schwarn. Okay, so maybe not then, but
2016 they took starters because Anderson's up in AAA with the Giants, pitching decently well. Looks like a back end guy. Schwarn has a chance to start, maybe. So yeah, I mean, it's more the last 2 years they haven't really taken, and even, it's more last year. Last year they just didn't take anyone.
Yeah, but it's there's a slew of guys in this kind of GCL Greenville. We're starting to see it with with a Denny Reyes coming up.
Yeah.
But, if you look behind him, you've got a nice looking crop of potential starting pitching options, and like if they panned out, like and these are guys who are way off. None of these guys are in our top 20, but Alexander Montero in Lowell last year.
Brian Bello got a lot of love during Instructs.
Yeah, Brian Bello, Miguel Suero.
Aldo
Ramirez, yeah. I mean, a number of these guys were down there who maybe if it all came together, it could work as a starting pitcher. So, but that said, they're also like 4 years away. So,
well, and I mean, this is a little off topic-ish, but I do agree with the decision. I mean, obviously they're going to say it was best player available, but given where the system was, I like what they did in the draft last year. We've talked about this, and like starting pitching is the hardest to predict, and they needed to replenish their depth. And it's a lot easier to do that with position player talent because that's more of a sure. It's not always no prospect is a sure thing, but it's a lot easier to find those guys who you can project out as potential big league bats than big league starters, as we've seen, over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the system was already flush with relievers, but when you get a guy like a Feltman that can move quick. But again, we'll get to those guys. But thank you for the question, Austin. I mean, it's kind of interesting. Let's look to Twitter. And if you go to the Twitter, we got a bunch there. Okay, and the first tweet I saw was a GIF of Gritty. That's terrifying. Okay, yeah.
Are you team Gritty or not?
I like Gritty, man. I'm team Mascot. He's not as bad. He's not as bad as like the original New Orleans Pelican. That's the low point.
Or the baby.
That's also terrible. Both of those are just terrifying.
Yeah.
Gritty, I think, is just, I mean, the fact that he's probably the second most well-known mascot behind the Philly Fanatic right now. I mean, who do people know about more than Gritty than the Philly Fanatic right now?
That's a good point.
Right? Except unless like locally teams, people like in Boston, people are probably screaming at their computer / phone right now, Wally. Right.
Nationally, though, Gritty gets a lot of play.
Exactly.
He's in like Sports Center commercials. He's all over the place.
Yeah, he's all over Twitter. I mean, and I'm not on Philly sports Twitter, right?
No.
So, anyway, Gritty. I'm pro Gritty.
Start talking about mascots. Anyway, moving on to the prospects.
Okay, sorry. There was also the context for the Gritty tweet was hinting at a running mate that will sway some far left Dems. That's pretty great, and it's just Gritty.
We don't need to get into politics.
No, we don't. But it was just funny. All right, yeah. So our first question comes from Timothy Tim, and he asks, "When Michael Chavis coming up?" We've mentioned this in the past, Ian, but it's a pretty easy one. I mean, Chavis, got to imagine he's up some point this year, right? At least September.
Yeah, unless he doesn't get hurt, it would have to be sometime this year, unless he gets hurt. He gets hurt, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. If he comes up before September, it's because something went wrong.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, if you look at it, Sam Travis is ahead of him on the corner infield depth chart. I guess the only, and even
is he? Now that Chavis is on the 40?
Just because he's been in the big leagues, probably.
It depends what they need. If they need a guy to come up and ride the pine for 4 days, it's going to be Sam Travis.
But, I mean, even for third base depth, if Devers got hurt, they'd play Nunez or Holt.
Exactly. That was what I was about to say. It depends if Pedroia is healthy. If Pedroia is healthy, Chavis isn't coming up until September. Because if Pedroia is healthy, that means that Brock Holt and Eduardo Nunez aren't starting at second base. But if they're, I just can't see him coming up unless it's like Pedroia is not healthy, and so they're using Holt and or Nunez at second, and then like a Devers gets hurt or isn't producing. Maybe if it's a Devers isn't producing thing and they want to get him a breather, Chavis comes up for a little bit. But they've got two guys at first base. You know, if Moreland or Pierce goes down, then they're just going to go with the other guy starting full time. You know,
if it's just the way the roster is constructed, they have insurance policy, so they don't need to use Chavis this year until September. If
an outfielder gets hurt, they start JD Martinez in the outfield, and they're playing the other first baseman at DH more. I can't see it unless there are multiple injuries or something goes really, really wrong. Yeah. Or, you know, how about this scenario? If Chavis goes to Pawtucket and rakes, okay, decent enough defense, how early could he force his way up if someone's not playing well?
It wouldn't be until, like, when did Benintendi and Bogarts and those guys come up? It's like late July, early August. Yeah. It's going to be after right around the trade deadline or after. Yeah. That would be the very earliest I could see it.
Yeah, it would be we really don't need to trade for anyone. We have Chavis call up. That may or may not actually be how they feel, but they do it to try and get some leverage in a trade negotiation. But anyway, yeah, so that's the earliest I could see him come up. Next question comes from Ralph Lifshitz at Prospect Jesus. And at Prospect Jesus asks about possible relief options from within the organization, also Mike Schwaren's role in 2019. On the first question, we have probably talked about that, the last 4 podcasts, Ian? Last 5?
Well, we talked about the bullpen a lot. I don't know if we necessarily talked in depth about Schwarren, but
no, that's why I said the first part.
Yeah, I mean, we can just like to run it down quickly. It's like just look for the guys on the 40-man frame, like Travis Lakins, Colton Brewer, Bobby Pointer, Josh Taylor would be the 4, and then the wild card for me is Durbin Feltman and Darwinzon Hernandez. Yep. Those are the 2. Like, we need a shot in the arm in July. Like, screw it, let's go for it, guys. I think.
But, I mean, and you also look at the guys they signed to minor league contracts. I mean, you could see if Daniel Schlereth puts it together, if Henry Mejia puts it together, if Zach Putnam is healthy and puts it together, Runtzler.
Domingo Tapia.
Domingo Tapia is going to be a non-roster invite. So he's probably ahead of those guys. Dan Runtzler, Brian Ellington, who they just signed, who can dial up triple digits, but last year, as you noted before we started recording, walked 16 guys in 6 innings in Double-A Jackson. If they fix him, that's interesting.
Well, and then also, like, I don't know what the deal with. I'm assuming Carson Smith's out for most of the year, but if he comes back at some point, or even like guys like that, and I bet they sign more of those minor league depth relievers to see what happens going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, here's my question to you, just to kind of talk about the depth options thing. If you look at what they've been doing, assuming that the plan is not just to wait out Craig Kimbrell, right? The major league relief pitching market, maybe it's not entirely picked over at this point, right? Because there are still guys out there that are interesting, like a Sergio Romo.
I mean, but they've passed on a lot of guys who signed for reasonable money. Like, Brad Boxberger got like $2 million. Greg Holland got similar.
They've also reportedly been in on guys who did sign.
Brad Brock. Yeah, true.
But I mean, it's also like, it's not like there's nothing left in the relief pitcher market. I mean, MLB free agent tracker. Oh no, there was an article about on Fangraphs, or was it BP? It was BP. Let me pull this up. It was about what would a team comprised of current free agents do, according to PECOTA. And it was like they would, in the AL, they would be project to finish 1 game out of the playoffs. Where the hell is it? PECOTA projects the 2019 all-free agent team. Is that what this is? Yes. Okay, yeah. So the bullpen, the best guys available. Here's a list of guys who are available for the bullpen. Obviously, Craig Kimbrell, Bud Norris, Ryan Madsen, Sergio Romo, Adam Warren, Jim Johnson, Tyler Clippard, Jake Dykman, Tony Sipp. I could see them signing 1 or 2 of those guys.
I mean, if they're willing to take like
1 year, $3 million deal for.
I don't even think you would take that at this point, because that's what all the like Brad Brock types are getting. I think it's going to come down to like will one of those guys accept, a 1 year, 1.125 million deal if he makes the major league team, and if not, he has an opt out on April 1st or something
right.
Something like that. Because they do have, on our projected rosters, we know that we have an open spot in the projection, and that's assuming they keep Brian Johnson and Hector Velasquez. So there could be potentially 2 open spots.
Yeah. I can't see them entering the year with a bullpen of Johnson, Velasquez, Barnes, Brazier, Thornburg, Hembry, Workman.
It's kind of the antithesis of what the Yankees and all the other high American League East teams are doing, who are loading up their bullpens, like the Athletics, teams like that, whereas the Red Sox are kind of going the other route. But we'll see what happens with Kimbrel. He's the big wild card because tomorrow they could come out and sign him to a one. I wonder if they're waiting out to see if they can get a 1 year $20 million deal,
that's the thing,
like a pillow contract to get him to next year.
I would love Kimbrel on a 1 year deal. Are you kidding me? That's perfect.
I just don't want him on a 5 year deal.
No.
So and I think that's kind of what the stalemate is. If I had to guess, is he wants a long term deal and teams aren't willing to give it to him.
And he should get it. I don't know. Anyway,
but no one spends money though, so it goes back to the CBA.
We're getting on a tangent, but at least I guess the question is, with the bullpen as it's currently projected, despite what we talked about on the episode when we had Alex Spear on, that would show that they are planning on relying on their depth within the organization early and often. The Colton Brewers, I guess you could put right now,
I think Brewer makes the
team.
Yeah,
right?
I think they want him to make the team.
Yeah, if they don't sign anyone else, Colton Brewer was the acquisition, and then they're okay with a Bobby Pointer cracking the. Heck, he did it out of camp last year.
Well, and I think though that they'll do kind of what we've advocated in the past, where for the last spot, you just basically cycle through guys until someone sticks.
Yeah.
Kind of like it wasn't how they found Brazier, but kind of like what happened, and you hope you hit Brazier, sorry. And you hope, you hope, yeah, and you hope you strike gold like they did with Brazier last year.
And that's the thing, that's kind of the question that comes up for me is, have they, do you think they are overconfident that with all of these minor league non-roster invite signings they've made, they think that they can just pull that off again in a way that is detrimental?
What year was it they tried with who was it, Chad Fox?
That was 2003.
That didn't work very
That was
well.
a little different. That was they were trying closer by committee, but the problem is no one was good enough to make that bullpen work. It was Tim Lynn, Chad Fox,
Alan Embry. Yeah. But I don't know. Scott Williamson, I think, was in there. I used to like Scott Williamson.
No, Scott Williamson they traded for later in the year.
Okay. I don't. It's going to be interesting. I'm not a big fan of the proven closer. I like more I look for skills, and I think with Barnes and Brazier, they have a couple guys who can pitch late innings, but you need more than 2 in this day and age, and that's the thing that's kind of concerning to me is someone has to step up and get in that role.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure Thornburg is going to stay healthy. Hembry, I don't think that's him. Workman, same thing. They need more than 2 guys that you can trust in leverage innings, or those 2 are going to blow out halfway through the year. So
right.
That's kind of the concern for me.
Well, because if you look, there's people probably screaming names like Brandon Lyon and Alan Embry at me right now. But if you look at the 2003 Red Sox bullpen, obviously they went and traded for Byung-Hyun Kim. But relievers who got significant innings that year, Mike Timlin, remember Ramiro Mendoza.
Oh, yeah.
Brandon Lyon, Alan Embry, Todd Jones. Oh, my God.
Oh, God, I forgot. That. Tigers legend.
Jason Shield. They traded for Scott Williamson.
Scott was good with the Reds for a little bit.
Chad Fox, Steve Woodard, Scott Sauerbeck.
Oh, he was a lefty.
He was a lefty.
Pittsburgh, yeah.
Oh my God, Robert Person. Rudy
I genuinely don't. I don't know who Robert Person is. I know who Rudy Cianez is.
Rudy Cianez, I remember I used to trade for him in All-Star Baseball 2000.
I liked him because I just remember he had a very tan glove. I don't know why. It's a really random thing, but if you look it up, look.
Oh man, Bob Howry. I forgot about him.
He was with the White Sox.
Yes, he was. Anyway, but yeah, you don't want that to happen again is the point.
Yes, correct.
But yeah, and also, so Mike Schwerin. Mike Schwarin's role in 2019, and I'll throw out there, Schwerin starts the year as Pawtucket's opening day starter, unless Stephen Wright is rehabbing and they want him to get the opening day start, which could also happen. Although I think if Stephen Wright is rehabbing, you probably want him in the bullpen, right? Because that's going to be his role. So, yeah, I'll say Mike Schwerin, Pawtucket Red Sox opening day starter. At what point do you move Mike Schwerin to the bullpen? Or do you?
I don't think you do, because he's the only guy who I think has a chance to start who's on that list. And they just have so many like potential bullpen options ahead of him that you ride him in the rotation, unless the only way I think it happens is if they're considering calling him up.
Right. That's true. But the depth comes from Johnson and Velasquez, right? Although I guess it's possible that Velasquez is your Pawtucket opening day starter because he
has an option. So
that's probably most likely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those two guys get starts ahead of him.
And we're also like guys like Erasmo Ramirez has been a quality big league pitcher for years. Like we didn't really mention him, but I mean he got 10 starts last year. Like.
Right.
I feel like he's someone who, if he pitches well in spring training, like he was good in 2017 with Seattle and Tampa. He was pretty good as a starter. Like,
right.
He's someone you could throw out if you need a starting pitcher. I think with Schwerin, like, he needs the time in AAA. He only got, how many innings did he throw last year in AAA? 36. He only threw 36 innings in AAA last year. Like, if he throws 120, 130 innings in AAA this year, that's not the worst thing to happen.
Right. Right, and you want to see if it's going to work in the rotation with a guy like that before you move him to the bullpen, even if that's where we think he's going to wind up. It's different than moving a guy like Lakin's moved because of health concerns more than anything.
Lakin's they needed to keep healthy, and like Schwerin doesn't have as high a ceiling like in terms of a late inning role. It's just the stuff like it doesn't stand out in a bullpen role. So
also, Schwerin's not on the 40 yet.
That's the biggest thing.
That's the biggest thing. You've got guys like Lakin's, Brewer, Pointer, Taylor, Chandler, Shepard. Marcus Walden, who we haven't mentioned, is on the 40-man. They've got guys on the 40. Even Darwinzon Hernandez is on the 40, so that might be a reason you see him first.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I think Schwarin's more of a 2019 play. Sorry, 2020 play.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah. Okay, cool. Our next question comes from @G3 Photography, and the quote question is Trey Ball ... So
he's a position player.
He is a position player now. We actually don't have – we'll have to see. He's a guy, when we get the spring training roster, I'm going to want to see. Presumably, he is going to only hit.
That's not clear, though, because I thought they left it open.
It's not clear. They have left it open. Where do you put him? It's an interesting question.
I wouldn't hate to see him be a hitter and like try to be like a left-handed specialist. I wouldn't hate it in that role,
right? Just
to try it out. But I think you have to start him in low A.
I don't think you could him any higher than that and have it be a serious.
No, because like he hasn't hit in 6 years. What is it? 5 years? 6 years?
It was the 2013 first-round pick.
Yeah, so 6 years he hasn't hit.
13, 14, 15, 16.
So it's 2019.
Yes, that's 6 full years. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
I had to use my abacus.
So I think you have to start him. I think you have to start him in low A, and like given what I saw with him at the plate, I mean he's got a little bit of pop, but it's raw. The approach is very raw. He hasn't seen. I mean, didn't he get a couple of bats at the end of last season in Portland? He did. Because
remember, he won a game for them and struck out on almost every other.
1 for 9 or something.
Yeah,
but
1 for 9 with a double.
I think if it's a serious thing, it's a low A.
Yeah. So yeah, that's Trey Ball. ... Our next question is from Johnny S., who asks, "Can we expect big league bullpen impact from the minors this year?" Which I guess is a slightly different question. For me, if you're going to get, quote, impact, it's Durbin Feldman.
I think, yeah, if we're not, I mean, I would say like Brewer's your best chance in most likely.
Depends on what, I mean, do you count him from the minors?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think they're going to need bullpen impact from the minors. How about that?
With this roster, they sure are.
They need something to step up, and I'm a little surprised that they haven't invited Feldman to big league spring training, frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I think he's going to get it. I think even if he's not invited, he'll get into big league games, kind of like that year remember when Moncada was playing in big league games, even though he wasn't quote NRI.
Yeah.
Like, I think you have to get him some big league innings this year. Cause I mean, we'll talk about it at the end. Yeah. Cause we'll wrap around to it. But I think we talk about, like Keith Law mentioned, what we've talked about a lot. Like, you know, he has a quote in his article, get him to the majors before he breaks. Like, the stuff is what it is. And the deliveries, there's a lot of effort. Like, I don't like wasting his arm in the minors. So just get him up there as quick as possible. And I think part of that is starting him with getting some innings in big league camp. Yeah,
there was a great article. I think Sam Dykstra on MILB.com wrote it recently, and I tweeted it, retweeted it, and I think the account also, the Sox Prospects account also retweeted it. But he was talking about, like, the first call up from Lowell. He was about to get on the bus from a road trip, and they held him back. And he's like, yeah, I had an idea of why. But then, like, the call up from Greenville to Salem, like, he was in the ice tub, and they, like, told him to get out of the ice tub. And so he was, like, ran out of the ice tub to a towel on into the manager's office because, like, they call you, you go. So, yeah, but it's just interesting to hear about how quickly he's come up through the system as a 2019 draft pick, or 2018 draft pick. But yeah, I could see him. I mean, he's almost without question going to start in Portland, and then how quickly he moves up, I think, is up to him more than anything. But I could see him. One of the few. I always forget to mention him because he's not on the 40. But I think impact innings more so than anyone else they have, except for maybe Darwinzon Hernandez. And I think the difference is that Darwinzon Hernandez,
they want to try and make him a starter.
I think you keep trying as a starter until he gives
he's
you a reason
way more valuable. He has of healthy pitchers right now above, like, actually probably in the entire system, frankly. He has the highest ceiling as a starter. If he can stick as a starter is the question. And that's I would say it's like a 5% chance he reaches that. In terms of the, like, his, not even 5%, his ceiling is like a 1% chance, but him sticking in the rotation, like, it all comes down to command and control this year. And we'll kind of see what happens with that. Yeah. Because the stuff is there.
Right, and I've got a point to make on him when we start talking about rankings. Our next question comes from an account that I don't believe is the actual Mutton Callahan account, but is pretending to be. And it says it says Jason Groom update. First thing, it's Jay now, but anyway, Jay Groom. I mean, with Groom, I think it's just you hope he's ready midseason. He's throwing. He's posted that he's throwing on Instagram.
And he'll be back when he's back. At some point this season, he needs to get some innings.
Hope he gets 30 innings before instructs and then instructs. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I mean, even that. If it will be successful in terms of coming back if he pitches at any point this year in an affiliate game.
Right. Yeah. All right. Anyway, but that's our Jay Groom update. Next question from KRye24. What are your thoughts on catcher Austin Rye going into the year? Second big league camp invite in a row. Ian, what are your thoughts? You've seen Austin Rye more recently than me.
I think, Rye he's got good catch and throw skills. And I think that's part of why he's, he can handle big league pitching staff. And they clearly have confidence in that when they were willing to come up last year when he started last year in Portland. But the question, I mean, obviously it's what his ultimate ceiling is going to come down to how much he hits, will he hit enough to be an everyday guy? I'm not sure. I mean, we'll see. He hit 249, 355, 392 last year in Portland. Obviously the bar for catcher is really low offensively. But if the defense is there, he'll get a big league shot. I think that's what it comes down to. And then it's just whether it's, in a backup or up and down role or everyday role is all going to depend on how the bat develops.
Yeah, I think he goes back to Portland to start the year. But I could see him getting up to Pawtucket mid-year if they like what they're seeing out of him in Portland.
And there's going to be an open catcher spot for someone who's going to play in the big leagues this year because they don't have anyone in the minors on their 40-man roster as a catcher because Dan Butler retired. So, the options, obviously they have Juan Centeno, who has some big league experience, Oscar Hernandez, I think, who also has big league experience, but there's an opening if he can take a step forward at the plate this year.
Yeah. I mean, Hernandez has all of 4 MLB games. Oh no, sorry, not 4. He's got, 22 major league games under his belt.
Well, he also got screwed because he got Rule 5 straight out of A-ball.
Yeah, that's just not a good idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, Centeno, let's see, he played in 2013 with the Mets for 4
Played last year
games.
with the Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a decent number. He's been an up and down guy for years. I mean, in 2016, he played in 55 games with the Twins.
He's a quintessential like up and down catcher.
Yeah, I mean, Centeno's clearly the next man up.
Well, they have 3 on the roster right now, though. So,
and they're going to trade one if you believe Dave Dombrowski. So, I mean, don't get me started. Yeah. But anyway, that's Austin Rye. And then let's see, we have a question from at Mike Andrews SP. And that guy says sushi.
I like sushi.
I like sushi as well.
All right, cool. Next question.
No, well, let me ask you, should we get into Brahma versus Blue? No, we probably shouldn't. We should also give a shout out to Fine Folks Pizza as well. We need to get a sponsorship with them, because that was probably the top discovery of the spring training trip last year, was that there's this pizza place within walking distance of JetBlue Park.
Oh, yeah. That place is pretty good.
Actually kind of money.
Decent. Yeah.
I think that might have been Kelly who gave us the heads up on that. Kelly O'Connor. Shout out to Kelly. But yeah, I still have the Fine Folks Pizza magnet on my fridge. And,
I forgot about that place. Yeah, because it's so clutch when there's the parking, when you can't leave because there's a game going on.
Yeah, home games. It's pretty money. I would definitely, if you're thinking about heading down there, check out Fine Folks, or Fine Folk, I think it's technically called.
Yeah.
But yeah, all right. So I think that exhausts all of the questions.
Yes.
So cool. Again, podcast at soxprospects.com. And then real quick, Ian, I guess we should touch on rankings by Fangraphs and Keith Law of ESPN.com. Fangraphs is free. Keith Law's is behind a paywall, so we probably can't get into it too much. We'll talk about his ranks, I think, and maybe surprises and things that we find interesting.
I mean, how much of it is not behind the paywall? I actually don't know, because I have ESPN Plus. So that's what I'm wondering. Let me look, actually.
Just open it in an incognito window.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Well, I'll start on Fangraphs then. The Fangraphs rankings came out in early January. We just haven't had a chance to talk about it. And it's kind of interesting. We talked with Alex Spear, his number one prospect in the system, actually, just to remind you, the Baseball America rankings. It's Bobby Dahlbeck, followed by Michael Chavis, Darwinzon Hernandez, Jay Groom, Tristan Casas, Brian Mata, Tanner Houck. Our rankings at Sox Prospects, it's Michael Chavis, Tristan Casas, Jay Groom, Darwinzon Hernandez, Bobby Dahlbeck, Tanner Houck, Brian Mata. The Fangraphs guys, their number one is Tristan Casas, and actually it's interesting if you look at Sox Prospects, Baseball America, Fangraphs, ESPN, Ian, I just realized this, 4 different number one prospects. So it's kind of interesting.
Everyone's all over the place.
We're all over the place, and it's exactly what we talked about with Alex on that episode. It's the Fangraphs guys have Tristan Casas, followed by Darwinzon Hernandez, Michael Chavis. Their number 4 is Anthony Flores, which I get, followed by Tanner Houck. Their number 6 is Nick Decker, Bobby Dahlbeck, then Jay Groom, then Brian Mata. So, definitely a different way to look at the system. Do we want to just mention the Law rankings really quick?
You can't see any of it, actually.
All right, well, I'll just give the top, his 3. Top 7. Well, let's give his top 7.
All right.
Well, because I definitely want to at least mention number 7, because that's one of the interesting ones. His goes Darwinzon Hernandez, Tristan Casas, Tanner Houck, Jay Groom, Michael Chavis, Bobby Dahlbeck, Alex Scherf, which is really interesting when you consider that, I know he's in our top. Scherf's number 19 on our list. He's going to be in the Baseball America top 30. He is not in Fangraphs top 26 or 25. How deep did they go?
26 plus. 26 they did plus 16 other guys.
Yeah,
and he
honorable
wasn't
mentions.
In that.
Although that might be more of it's.
Well, and I'll say, I talked to some people who looked at the Fangraphs list and they said omitting Scherf was a definite oversight. People in the industry. Yeah, the baseball industry, that is. So.
Right. And when they do their honorable mentions, that's just kind of guys they hear about too. The tough part with Scherf is, he was a guy who basically was just starting to throw good, got hurt, was out for a few months, and came back, in shorter stints, and then was throwing pretty well.
Yeah, and I will say he's posted some off-season videos, which are pretty interesting. It seems like the velocity's starting to come back.
Yes, definitely. We'll talk more in depth. Maybe we should go into that. Just some interesting things and surprises. One of the interesting things that for me, like I said, 4 lists, 4 number ones. MLB Pipeline's list is going to come out on February 18th. And what we'll do after that is Ian and I started putting together kind of an aggregate ranking of us, BA, Fangraphs, Law, and we'll add MLB Pipeline to it once that one comes out. Just to kind of get a feel for where people are at. I really kind of hope that they have, like, I don't know who the other number one would be, maybe Jake Vroom, but I doubt. I think
they're gonna have Chavis one.
Oh, they're gonna have Chavis
top 100
because he's the only one in the top 100. He's number 79 on their list, so I guess their top 100 came out.
Yeah,
and he's the only top 100 guy on any of the lists so far, like we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll double up on Chavis there, but like we said, I get it. I mean, if you look at there are some tiers starting to form. We'll get into those in the next episode, but there are some top guys with a lot of questions, and then there's just a free-for-all behind there. So there's a lot of interesting things. And Scherf at number 7 on the Keith Law list is really one of the big outliers for me. I get it. As kind of the guy who internally, Ian, I think we can safely say was the one who was pushing for Scherf for most of the year. I think he didn't have a great year.
He was good, though, when he came back from injury. And
he was good when he came back, and he was good before he got hurt. There was about a month before he got hurt, or about 4 or 5 starts before he got hurt, where he was pitching pretty well. The numbers don't jump off the page for you, but there's still, 51 Ks in 65 innings doesn't jump out at you. 23 Ks in 65 innings doesn't jump out at you. But those numbers were improving near the end of the year. And Keith mentions that Scherf was mostly fastball changeup with a fringy breaking ball, which is kind of what you've seen. Right, what you've written about. Apparently, he came back in Instructs, and since added a cutter, which must mean since Instructs.
Yeah, because he didn't throw it. I'm just looking back at my Instructs notes right now, and he didn't throw it in Instructs. He only threw fastball, curveball, changeup.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that pitch gets incorporated. And I mentioned, a guy like Amada, who you let him get a little older before adding something like a cutter. Could that be a piece that he needs? I think he's a guy who could move up the rankings quickly. I think putting him 7 now is kind of aggressive.
Well, I mean, and we should say, one of the concerns I had with Scherf was just the velocity that we heard about was never there. The highest I saw him at was like 94, and he was mostly like 90, 92. Mm-hmm. But I know during, he's posted some videos that have been sent, some people have sent me some stuff of him, hitting, triple digits with weighted balls or odd crow hops and stuff.
With a crow hop.
So, I mean, it seems like he's been working out hard this offseason, and he seems like he's healthy. And obviously this will be his second full spring training. So now he has an idea of what to expect going in. And I'm interested. He's one of the guys of the pitchers I'm most interested to see, because I know we're not going to see Groom. And we're probably not going to see guys like Darwinzon because they're going to be up with the big league team. Mm-hmm. But of guys we're likely to see, he's the one I want to see what the delivery looks like. What has kind of happened? Is he still tinkering with it like they tried to last year that didn't work? Have they just let him keep going with what he was doing? And then I want to see what his pitch mix looks like. What does the breaking ball look like? What is the changeup? Is there this cutter? What's it look like? So he's one of the guys I'm more interested to see in it. And I agree with you that if he comes out and shows what they thought they were getting when they took him and gave him that, second, third round bonus, then he's someone who could definitely push up into the top 10 pretty quickly.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hopefully going to get to see Scherf multiple times this year. The schedule works out such that I'm going to get to see Salem a fair amount between Frederick and Potomac. Hopefully I'll see him in Frederick where I can actually see things like pitch shape, unlike the Potomac stands, which are kind of like Pawtucket's. It must be like a way that the home team's name sounds like Potomac sounds like Pawtucket.
That park is so bad.
It's not good. It's not a good park.
I like Frederick's.
Frederick's is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, by the way, just with Scherf, he tweeted on February 1 that 101 with the baseball, which that's 5 ounces, 98 to 99 with the 6 ounce weighted ball, 104 to 105 with a 4 ounce. And
this is what I was talking about.
He was working with TMI Sports Medicine and Driveline.
That's always a good thing.
That's a good thing. I like it. And it seems like something the Red Sox are more willing to allow guys to do.
I mean, I don't see why. Yeah. So he's definitely. I mean, I think when we get closer to spring training, we'll talk about the guys we're most interested to see. But he's definitely up there for me.
Sure. What else was interesting to you on the list, Ian? There's some different things on there.
Fangraphs, I mean, I mentioned it at the very beginning. Flores at 4 is aggressive, but I like it. I mean, I'm Team Flores. I like him a lot. I see it, and he's the guy, I kind of mentioned it, that if they have someone jump into the top 100 next year, it's going to be him, because prospect lists love up the middle prospects, especially young ones who show, good defensive skills and a little bit at the plate. And that's kind of Flores' MO. Like, he doesn't have he also has a updated scouting report, which you can check out on the site. Full one, expansive one, but he doesn't have like a standout, plus tool. But he's just got a bunch of like 50s and 55s, and the overall package is like a really good player. So
that could become plus tools. Any of them?
No, I don't.
You don't see it?
Hit is his best chance, I would say. Hit and defense, but I think it's more like a bunch of 50s and 55s with an occasional like 45 in there. Cause like speed wise, he's not going to be a quick, base stealer or anything. I think that's probably his worst tool. But I mean, if that guy up the middle is a really valuable player. And so I think, it's a little aggressive for me, given his, proximity to the big leagues. He's years away and he's had some issues staying on the field, obviously. But, if he stays healthy, he's someone who could skyrocket up these lists, and Fangraphs is kind of hedging their bets with him already up there. I think then the other one, Decker at 6 also.
Right.
I'm very pro Nick Decker. I was very impressed with him in Instructs, and I guess as Instructs went on, he got a lot stronger, which makes sense considering I think he missed the entire GCL year. Yeah.
Well, he all but like the last 2 games.
But obviously, so that makes sense, as he was getting his timing back and getting more reps. And he was someone that scouts coming out of Instructs were really impressed with. I'm not sure he's a center fielder, and if he's a center fielder, it's very interesting. But I think he's probably a corner guy, and the power's a little fringy for the corner, but I think there's, a potential above average power. And he's someone who just he's a gamer. He works hard. He goes out there and he has some tools, and I'm interested to see how he adjusts to full season ball. He's another one who I think could, I think we have him just outside the top 10, could definitely be pushing for the top 10 if he looks good early season.
Yeah, we have him at 11. I know Baseball America's got him in their top 20 on Alex's list. Keith Law had him at 10. I get it. Part of the thing with Fangraphs is they're really big on the future value. And they kind of do it into tiers and then kind of rank within the tiers. So if you look at their 45 future value prospect, there are no 50s in the Red Sox system per Fangraphs.
And theirs is most likely outcome. They're not doing ceiling.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what we do too.
No, yes, I agree. But I'm saying that theirs is that there's no 50s, that shouldn't alarm people. That's
right. Well,
there are guys who I think could. It's not great. It's what I'm trying to say is there are guys who could be turn into 50s everyday regulars on this list. They just at this point aren't projecting any of them to be. How about that?
I mean, we have 150, so and our only 50 is Chavis. So but they have 345s in Casas, Hernandez, and Chavis, and after that they actually have a 40+ tier, so between 40 and 45, where that tier is Flores, Houck, Decker, Dahlbeck, Groom. And really it's kind of within that tier they're ranking kind of maybe not by risk, but it's you get why if you're going to give Flores and Houck the same 40+ future value, I get why the GCL guy is the guy they're going to rank at the top. You know what I mean?
There's the highest variation, but for the most upside.
Right. Whereas with the Bobby Dahlbeck, there's a lot of risk there for a guy who's already in AA.
Correct. And he's almost 24.
I get it. There's some variance there. Whereas Decker, I think, give him a 40+, that means that they really like the reports they got on him. They're, to me, kind of the aggressive thing with Decker is they've got a 55 raw on him right now. I don't know if that's something you agree with.
I said above that. I think it's 55.
Well, raw versus game power. The game power, they've got him at a current 25, future 55.
Oh, I mean, I saw him take BP, and he, I would say pull side is definitely above average. Opposite field is not there yet, but his pull raw is legit. He put it onto the batting cage several times out in right field at field. What is that? Field 4, I think.
Yeah, the whatever field that is. It used to be the Portland one, and now
the one I'm talking about, the Pawtucket one. Yeah, that field. He's got the raw power, so I mean he's another one. And then I think moving a little further down, in kind of a trend. Last year's draftees actually. It's just kind of further reinforces what we talked about all year. After we saw them, and then during Instructs, the Duran, Howlett, Gilberto trio. They're all interesting guys. They're all in the top. They're in their top 15. They're in our top 20. They're all guys who can, if they continue to show off like they did last season, can definitely take a step up these lists.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting. None of these other lists ranked Zue Lin, which is one thing that was, you have to keep in mind. I think that's probably a service time thing.
They all graduate for service time, whereas we don't. So.
Yeah, we don't always. I think we just kind of discretionary do. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, some of the interesting guys that were missing from Fangraph's list, like Zach Schellinger, who we otherwise are the low one. I think we're probably going to be the low ones on with him at 25, and I could see him moving up real quick during spring training if we like what we see there.
His stuff-wise, he belongs in the top 20. It's just a health hedge.
Yeah, I mean, when Keith Law is ranking out to, what did he rank out to, 20?
Yeah.
No, he ranked out to 22.
You're right.
I get making sure that you have Schellinger at 19, right? And I think that's the other thing we always mention too. With Fangraphs, they're making, they've got a top 26 because they're ranking everyone who is a 35 plus or higher. I think if we were forced to put future values on guys as opposed to just doing a ranking, I don't know. I don't even know if that I would say that. It's just, when you're putting guys in tiers, it's like, do we want to make sure we write about this guy or not? And then they have a ton of honorable mention type guys in there too, like upper level hitters. That includes like Netzer, Akami, and Baldwin, who's kind of like these are all the other guys we want to mention. Lower level hitters, relevant pitching depth, relevant, lower level arms. Those are all kind of interesting guys that they want to make sure they mention. And I could see why when Keith is ranking the Red Sox out to 22, you want to make sure you mention Schellinger. But I was kind of surprised that Schellinger doesn't even get a mention on Fangraphs in the relevant pitching depth or lower level arms. So
it's going to be interesting. It just shows, I think, though, that because there's a lot of different names on both lists when you get to the lower regions of it. Yeah. So it shows how kind of open the system is.
Yeah. Do we want to mention anything briefly about Alex's list? I mean, Darwinzon number one is just missed on his top 100.
You mean Keith Law's list?
Oh, Keith Law. What did I say?
Alex
Spears BA's list. We already talked with him about it.
I mean, yeah,
we talked about having Scherf at 7.
I mean, we have the same top 15 in some order. Yeah. So, except for one, sorry. We have
except for Scherf.
Yeah. Except for Scherf, who we mentioned. But, yeah, I mean, the list was fine. I mean, it was
Eli
kind
Marrero,
of what you expect.
Eli Marrero getting a mention and Cole Cottom getting a mention were interesting. I mean, Eli Marrero, he was the only guy who was in on Marrero, but catch and throw guy, switch hitter.
I mean, some scouts liked him as like a defensive guy from Instructs. So if you get a good report on him, why not?
Yeah. And then Cole Cottom, I get. That's kind of the last guy you want to make sure you mention.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those were kind of interesting. And like I said, after MLB Pipeline's list comes out on the 18th, we'll have aggregate rankings, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about that and where we differ from an aggregate.
Yeah, we're already starting to see some trends develop, though, which will be good to talk about in the next episode.
Cool. All right. Well, Ian, I think we'll wrap it up. Make sure you follow Ian at Ian Cundall. That's IANCUNDALL. I'm at SP Chris Hatfield, and make sure you follow the site account at Sox Prospects. News.soxprospects.com is where you can find this podcast write-up as well as any relevant links. You can also follow us on Stitcher, Google Play Music, Apple Podcasts. I said Stitcher. We're also on Spotify now. We're on YouTube. Find us pretty much anywhere. And if we're not somewhere where you listen to podcasts, make sure you let us know at podcast@soxprospects.com or on Twitter. Shout out, as always, to Podcast Joe Tetrault, the man who puts all this together. And thank you all for listening. I hope you all liked our last episode with VP of Amateur Scouting, Mike Rickard. If you haven't checked that out yet, make sure you check it out, talking about scouting amateurs, drafting. We go deep into the drafts that he's run with the Red Sox, drafting Andrew Benintendi, drafting Jake Groom. There's a lot of interesting things to get into with those guys, and hopefully we'll have them on in the future and we can get maybe a little more in-depth some things, talking about drafting potential pitchers, a lot of stuff that was really interesting there. And we're working on a similar kind of interview, and that's all I'll tell you for now for a future episode of the podcast. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. Ian, unless you got anything else, let's send it home.
Nope. Good to go.
Let's go home. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening.